Hello everybody, welcome to the top 10 tips of the March side quest. So I've put in a link in the description, a link to the spreadsheet. This is the probably last time I'm going to be mentioning about this particular spreadsheet, unless there's one particular thing extra to mention. But what I thought I'd do is put together 10 tips, which I think would be really effective for you when you're playing this Incursions, and also trying to interact with some of the objectives as well. Tip number 1 is all about the blessed objectives. The blessed objectives are actually a little bit more simple to do than you might think. Yes, it will mean that you've got to do 108 fights, but let's face it, if you're doing incursions, it kind of feels like you'll be doing multiple incursions each and every week, especially as the milestones reset. So yes, the milestones reset for the incursions on a 7-day cycle. So you're pretty much going to be going back into it on a regular basis. So therefore, if you set up your team with some of the following champions, some of these ones on screen right now as part of the objective, obviously doing the first one and then the second one, it does mean that you'll be able to do this. And yeah, don't be afraid to switch some of these out, especially as you go through the different incursion rooms. Or you could do this a lot more easy. Just go, okay, well, you only got to zone 5 in sector 6 or sector 5. Hey, do you know what you can do without the cost of, like, 0 cost of revives? And yes, you can buy revives, but you can exit out and go back in again with some new volumes of, or new types of champions of some of the ones that are on screen right now, and do it. Like, it's not going to cost you. Yes, it will be grindy, but it's a little bit more easier to do than it was last month. Obviously, if you're able to do it in one take and go right through to the very end, brilliant. You've probably done and smashed it out. But you do have to return back to this incursion fight and do the blessed objective. It's going to take the month, and you will be repeating the incursions kind of interaction for a lot longer than you might think. Tip number 2 is when you delve back into this particular incursions, if you're not really familiar with it, do lower content first. Doing the lower threats will be a lot less of a threat for you, and you might feel like, okay, well, you're getting some idea of champions, some good ideas of options, cheeses, those kind of things. It's really good to kind of do that. So get involved. Also, if you get to further extents of incursions and find it difficult, then hey, you can use things like boosts. Don't be afraid to use boosts that you get from the solo crystals, and this can be found in your crystal tab. Tip number 3 is all about the Outclassed Objective. This is actually a lot more easier to do than you might think, or you can look to more like switching champions out. But do bear in mind, whether or not you're doing some of the higher threat levels or lower threat levels, it's always important to look at, okay, if you're doing some of the lowers, it's easy, as I've put right here, to a whole team of tech champions and then just smash through this. So the first thing when even doing this, as we're doing it in the video right now, is I can just literally just, well, providing the AI comes at me, just do it da 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 da, da with a high kind of like very stronger champion. I've got that objective done right there, leaving me the shards objective. I am doing lower content versions of this because I want those shards, the dangerous crystal shards. And I planned out this particular team just to go against, well, like the grain with the class disadvantage. But also what that does is it does allow me to, and I'll be exiting out of this incursion fight in a minute, but my whole kind of plan with this is just to kind of go in and grab those lovely shards, which I just have to kind of do some more against the like without class advantage. So that's going to be a case like, as I go into maybe a couple more rooms, I might switch out some stuff and go, okay, well, what's in the next room? I can do a class disadvantage. I can have a science against a skill, for example. So yeah, always kind of like switch them out to do that, especially going to different rooms, and especially in the lower difficulties, which will be a lot less taxing on you as a player to get those shards more easily. Like in this particular run, still in threat level 1 or the lowest, and what I'll be doing is I'll be going up the right side against Electra, and I'll be going up against that Vulture, one with Quicksilver and the other one with Apocalypse. So that's where I'm looking to get those objectives done a lot easier without having to worry too much. Tip number 4 is a reminder to yourself to repeat the incursions once a week. I'm sure that people may kind of go like it's one and done, but it's always important to return back to it on a weekly basis, with the added luxury of not having to spend any energy this month, because that's the one great thing I think that, you know, needs to be mentioned, is you don't spend any energy. But you obviously do spend your time in kind of doing this. And if you make a mistake, reset the incursion and go back in again. Yes, it might feel a bit of a drag, but at least you've got those objectives there as something else to do whilst you're doing the reset of it. But in any case, to the point, you will be likely resetting on a weekly basis in order to get some of these components and shards. So that's something of a reminder. Remember, you have to go back in once a week in order to grab some more loot. and especially when it comes to the milestones, those are going to be done as well. Tip number 5, and it's all about buying revives and health potions. I said that in a weird way, but yeah, revives and health potions. Look, some people will use them, some people won't, and here's the thing. Hoarding them may be a good idea. How long they stay in your stash is going to be very important as well, because it's like saying, well, how many can you technically hold on for? You can hold on for 10 at a time. So what happens with the rest of them? Well, good news, bad news side of things. Once you buy them and saying you're hoarding them for a later point when you're doing incursions, if you buy them all, right, buy them all on, say, a Tuesday before, or even like Wednesday, just before the reset. But here's the thing, maybe put a reminder out, an alarm, grab them, hoard them, hold them in your stash. They're likely to be about that 21-day mark. But here's the thing, just buying them close to that Tuesday, what day will it be? Tuesday the 14th, Tuesday the 21st, 28th, that's going to be when it's going to be good to have them, and then say do your final run in Sector 6 or whatever you want to do. It's up to you, and you may not need them, so you may not need that tip. But here's the thing, hoarding them may be beneficial for you depending on where you want to go with a more extensive run, or how helpful it can be to have this in your stash. Be helpful, especially for a later date. Maybe returning back to incursions and having some more in your stash at a later date could be quite good. That then falls into tip number 6, and do bear in mind it saves you units by hoarding some of those incursions, revives and health potions. So you may want to consider it for like a post-event grind. I might have to do as a separate tip as well. But in any case, the tip that I would mention, number 6, is hoarding all your danger components. Now, you don't have to, especially if you're going to be investing or reinvesting into stuff like revives and health potions purchases. But I would say something that is bloody brilliant is hoarding right to the very end. You don't know how many of the components you will have. I could say that you right here watching this video will have 100k by the end of this, 150k, 180k components. It depends how far you're willing to go, how far you're able to push, and whether you get a bit of luck and stuff like that. But in any case, you could have a large volume or a small volume, or you don't really know. When you've got your volume available, you can then find out what is available to buy. It's always best to have like a high volume of components before making any kind of big decisions. So waiting towards the 30-something date, 30th, 31st, 32nd date in, or day in, then you'll be able to spend accordingly of what you feel that you're lacking this month, especially after doing some of the incursion runs. Tip number 7 is all about team setup. It is a very difficult thing to pitch a good or efficient team setup. We'll talk about that in a minute as to like there's a future tip about potential ideal setups. But do bear in mind, do not be afraid to change teams out and champions in and out of teams. There's going to be certain situations that hacks won't be able to help you out, and you may come to a particular node and go, okay, well, I'm facing off against the boss in a minute, and that particular boss has a particular ability, or it has a certain type of node which you do not have the champion available on your team. So changing out champions as you go may be a good thing, whether or not you're putting an evade counter in, or taking out an evade counter to replace with an auto block counter, whether or not you're taking another one out that has some burst damage and you're putting in something like Nemor just to have that reflective damage back on the enemy. Those particular decisions need to be made on the ad hoc, and do not be afraid to switch out champions as you go. Yes, you could lose persistency with certain champions, but I guess that's the difference between you having and going through one zone and another zone, or kind of stopping there with your particular progress. Speaking of switching out champions and getting accustomed to some of the end bosses like Viv Vision or Kate Bishop is going to be a very, very important thing for you. Whether or not you find the most ideal counter, it is best to kind of go, right, well, what worked? Is the likes of Archangel, APOC, or champions that suppress Kate Bishop's abilities going to be some of the best consistent options? Will you have to be switching out to that or multiple ones in the future, or keeping one specific champion that's able to counter the likes of Kate Bishop and also Viv Vision? So it's like, is it going to be a hashtag metal interaction champion? So is it going to be your standard red Magneto, white Magneto? You're going to have something that kind of meets both in the middle and is able to counter them. That's something to bear in mind, and that only happens as you regularly face off against the champion. Yes, specific base nodes are going to make this particular element of interaction difficult each time, but then therein lies the luck and the joy of things with finding out a regular counter that's going to work for you. Tip Tip number 9 is all about champions that are persistent. Champions that are persistent can be really helpful. Over the space of time of ramping them up, they can have great interaction. You've got the likes of Aegon, you've got Apocalypse, you've got Hercules, you have got a whole plethora of champions from Corvus Glaive right the way through to Odin and so many more. Some are going to be really good, some are going to be really effective, some are going to have some decent counters to it. So do bear in mind, it may be a case of using some of your best persistent champions like Hercules, like Apocalypse, like Corvus and so many more could be really effective. So look at those as being some really key options to get you through some difficult scrapes and also more deeper rooms and of the dungeons that you may find yourself in. And the final tip that I must say for this month is try and have fun. It is going to be very difficult to kind of like pitch something to everybody to make everyone happy about this. I know some people that really don't like the setup of this particular side quest. It's difficult for me because I really look forward to this. I thought this was great, mainly because it's just the same. It's been the same thing for like months in, months out, years in, years out. It's been nice to see something new, a fresh approach. Not saying this is super fresh, especially because it's using incursions, but it's different, and that's something that's very, very rare when it comes to Kabam, is doing something different. So whether or not you enjoy this idea or not, well, it's down to you, and try and find fun. If you don't think you're going to have fun with this particular event, try and find some ways around it to make it fun. And yeah, just kind of get that 6-star awakening gem, 5-star awakening gem, whatever is your meta, kind of work for it. And yeah, just kind of like work hard this month and try and have fun. Try and have some fun with it. Focus on some of the fun buffs and hacks that you're going to get in order to make your champion a lot more powerful. And yeah, like that has been it. That's been a video. Thank you very much for watching. Check out some other content which will be located on screen right now, and as well the spreadsheet, which is now updated to a point where it's done. But yeah, thank you very much for the support, and I'll see you in the next one. And lots of fun content I'm going to be posting on this particular event. Looking forward to it. Bye bye.